Welcome to the Movie Magnet podcast. I'm Ilono,
And I'm Folly.
and today we're breaking down season 2, episode 6 of the TV show Severance. This is a whole whirlwind of an episode that consists of weird dinner parties, nosebleeds, lovers getting intimate, and maybe someone becoming a father. Let's get into it. The episode starts with Mark telling Rigabi what he saw in the final scenes of the last episode. He mentions seeing white hallways. He also concerningly asks why Gemma was rattling off a bunch of facts. He questions what Lumen is doing to her. Ragabi, seemingly happy, remarks that Mark is making progress. Regarding his questions about Gemma, she tells him that all she knows is that she was essential to Lumen. Mark, with pain in his eyes, states that Gemma didn't even recognize him. Ragavi consoles him by saying the Gemma he knows is still in there and encourages him to get both of them out of Lumen.
Now back at Newman, Dylan is explaining to Mark and Helly about how he found a sketch of the black elevator that only goes down. He mentions that there was also directions to the dark hallway on the back. When Helly wants to see this, Dylan says he left it where he found it, behind the poster. When Mark questions why Dylan didn't just take the sketch, Dylan says he didn't take it because he didn't want to get in trouble. We think Dylan is not taking as many risks as he usually does because he does not want to lose his visitor privileges where he gets to see his outie's wife. Helly, being as fearless as always, says she'll just go get it herself. Dylan responds by saying she doesn't know everything. When both of them ask him to tell them what's wrong, he chooses not to and walks away.
Dylan is now seen talking to his outie's wife on one of his visitation sessions. He asks her about their first date together. She recalls it being with Thai food. She also mentions him taking scuba lessons, which were expensive. She fills him in about other stuff his outie was into, such as woodworking and garage beer making. Dylan, amused by the diversity of his outie, seems to be really happy. Dylan tries to understand his outie's behavior. Maybe he's trying to find something he excels at, like Inni Dylan excels at Lumen's MDR job. Gretchen wonders if his behavior may be due to him being unhappy. Dylan is so sure it's not that, because he loves spending time with Gretchen and hearing all about his outie's kids. This is a really cute moment and a definite favorite of mine this entire episode. Gretchen, feeling happy, says he's really sweet and she likes spending time with him as well. Dylan wishes he could really be together with Gretchen all the time. Aww. Dylan proceeds to ask her for a hug again like last time. This leads to a very sweet moment and a sweet hug between them. They proceed to kiss as well.
Speaking of Dylan, his outie asks how did his meeting with his Inni go. She says it was cancelled for an unknown reason, deliberately hiding she'd kissed his Inni earlier. What do you guys think? Does this mean Gretchen is cheating on outie Dylan or not? Comment down below. Now, Helly discusses a possible plan of getting the sketch of the elevator again. But Mark, being in his bad mood, acts disinterested. He proceeds to open the refrigerator. While doing so, he starts to remember how his refrigerator looks like in his Southie's home. This gradually develops to him starting to remember parts of how his Southie's home looks like as well. We're really excited now as we can see clear signs of both Outie and Inimark starting to remember things in each other's lives. We're looking forward to seeing him totally reintegrated. We now see Mark and Helly have locked themselves in the back room to have a private conversation. Mark informs her that Mr. Milchick had attempted to threaten him in the elevator right when he was leaving. Helly deduces that this is an attempt from Lumen to divide them so as to hinder them working together. Mark, unable to bear the secret, breaks it to Helly that they had sex with each other in the tent the other day. Helly, understandably, has conflicted feelings about this. She's probably feeling betrayed by Mark because he did not recognize Helena, to the point where he willingly had sex with her without suspecting her identity. On the other hand, Helly may also feel violated because her identity and her body was stolen by her outie to deceive Mark and her other MDR friends. While Mark tries convincing her that he did it thinking it was her and he had feelings for her way before Helena appeared, Helly, obviously confused, asks to go on a walk alone and then exits the bathroom. Helly is now seen sitting in a corner, remembering her kiss with Mark before the overtime contingency in season 1. Aw, poor Helly.
Cut to Mr. Milchick, who has an annoyed look on his face, probably because he's fresh off of his unfavorable performance review. Miss Huang enters his office and asks her to take a seat. He warns her that she cannot graduate from this fellowship until he has deemed her winter-tide material. This would mean focusing on her duties and not involving herself in childish folly. As we suspect earlier, Mr. Milchick also thinks the complaints about using too many big words or filing paper clips incorrectly were reported by Miss Huang. Hence, he is trying to assert his dominance as her superior and threatens her graduation through his power if she continues complaining. Miss Huang leaves saying that she understands. We think Miss Huang may be going to the same school as Miss Cobell. The term wintertide material may be related to Cold Harbor as both of them have the winter weather in common. What do you guys think about wintertide material? Comment down below. We now witness him looking at a jar of paper clips, probably recalling his complaint about filing them incorrectly at the performance review. He then proceeds to file the paper clips correctly. He is now completed the task, but his hands suddenly start trembling. He looks at his performance review contention that says he uses too many big words. He proceeds to stand in front of a mirror. He says the words, "You must eradicate yourself from childish folly," multiple times and tries to rephrase this into, "You must abandon childish things." And he modifies it into, "You must grow up." Grow up, as a means of trying to simplify his complex words. But we think this is also something he tells himself. Grow up, grow, grow.
After taking her time to think about it, Helly rushes to meet Mark. When Mark apologizes, she interrupts him saying he thought it was her, which means he wanted to have sex with her, with Helly R. She explains she's furious because Helena got to have that and she didn't. Helena used her to trick her friends. Helena used her body to get close to Mark. She hates that Helena dresses her in the morning like she's a baby. She absolutely hates that Helena controls her and this whole company. Mark now asks her if she wants him to describe what happened between them. Helly refuses, saying that she doesn't want Helena's memories, she wants her own. She asks him if he likes that. Mark smiles to her, replying yes, he'd like that. We really miss Helly R this season, and we're so excited to witness her fierce self taking control. Now Mark proceeds to follow her to an abandoned room full of office tables that's covered. She tells him that this is their tent and goes under the table, and they proceed to have sex. Yay!
Now we see Mark and Helly walking down the hallway after having sex. Both of them are really happy about it. Helly asks him if it was different with her, but he just responds by kissing her. While kissing, he notices her nose bleeding. However, she points out that it's not her, it's him. Concerned, they ask Miss Huang for assistance. She is perplexed by this as the humidity in the severed floor is consistently maintained at 45%, meaning it must have been caused by something else. She then asks Helly if she punched him, to which Helly jokingly replies, "Not today." When Miss Huang asks what they were doing when the bleeding started, they say they were refining data. They really remind us of school children lying to the teacher here.
Miss Wang now asks if Mark has a deviated septum, and he responds by saying he doesn't know what that is. She also asks if he has any other symptoms such as hallucinations. Mark deliberately hides this from Miss Wang, saying no and insisting that he's actually feeling better. We think Innie Mark is starting to suspect that Outie Mark is up to something. Miss Wang proceeds to check his blood pressure. As she does, Inimark suddenly experiences a vision of Altimark in one of his reintegration sections with Regabi. At the same time, Altimark, who is currently at the session, sees Miss Wang at Lumon. Altimark is really confused, but Regabi smiles and tells him that he's had another crossover memory, one that is very recent. She mentions that she needs to speed up the progress. When he asks if there are any risks, she admits that there's a slight chance of brain hemorrhage. However, she plans to flood the chip through the hole in his head to prevent that from happening. Mark, now uneasy, wants to stop and gets up from the session, saying he's hungry.
Mark has now gone to a restaurant and is enthusiastically eating food. He sees Helena there. She goes over to him and introduces herself as Helena Egan. He says he knows who she is. She says she's heard nothing but good things about his work and apologizes for the overtime contingency, saying that it will never happen again. They joke around saying Helena already wants to take him to her father and he'd be the first if that happened. We think this is actually true because we've seen Helena's jealous look when Helly killed Mark before, hinting that maybe she's not had partners in her life and is craving for it.
She continues their conversation, saying she's sorry he lost his wife Hannah. He mentions her name is actually Gemma. We feel like Helena was faking not knowing Gemma's name because we all know how important the Cold Harbor file is, and we know it's somehow connected to Gemma. Mark, while bidding farewell to Helena, suddenly left and drives away from the restaurant quickly. While he walks away, we see the name of the restaurant, which is Zhu Fu. Here we only see Fu being highlighted. Fu means father in Chinese, so we think this may be a foreshadowing of Mark becoming a father. It is not impossible since Mark and Helena's bodies have had unprotected sex 2 times, as we're pretty sure Lumon doesn't offer contraception supplies. Cut to a scene where we see Mr. Drummond unlocking a door to a house. This door is revealed to actually be an entry to Irving's house because we see him go through the files about severed employees which we witnessed in Season 1. We're pretty sure this person is Mr. Drummond because he saw his tattoo of the word frolic, which we are given a glimpse of last episode. We see him skimming through Goodman Bert's name on the list.
Speaking of Bert, we see Irving going to Bert's house. He opens the door asking, "Who the hell are you?" as a joke. Irving now meets Fields, who is Bert's husband. He apologizes for showing up at their house last time. While they eat dinner, Irving asks how Bert came to be at Lumen. Bert mentions they've been attending the Lutheran church for a few years. He says he's been a scoundrel in his younger years. So Fields asks him, "Do you think you're going to heaven?" He knew in his heart the answer is no. They hop on the train to the church that day. It so happens that the sermon on that day was about severance. It was a very new concept at that time. The pastor's stance about severance is that the innies are separate individuals with souls and they can be judged separately from the outie. So an innie can technically go to heaven whilst the outie burns. So they figured if it were true, it may be a way for part of Bert to go to heaven with Fields. This explanation does not make sense to us because if their theory is correct and we see innie Bert going to heaven, he would definitely not recognize outie Fields there. This is why we think this is complete bullcrap and this whole story is giving us Appendix 4 level of nonsense. Bert says Fields and him used to call each other Hon, but it became Attila about 10 years ago. Attila is the title of this episode. Fields corrects him, saying it was 20 years ago when they were having a drink together with his Lumen partner. Irving, confused, questions this by asking, wasn't Lumen's first severed office opened about 12 years ago? Bert says yes and hurriedly asks to stop this conversation. Through this, we get to know that Bert may have been working with Lumen before he was severed.
Fields now brings up the topic about Bert and Irving's innies may have had unprotected sex at work. This word, unprotected, is also a reference to Mark and Helly, who certainly have had unprotected sex, alluding to them being pregnant. Apparently, he spoke to the pastor, and the pastor said that the innies deserved love too, and he hopes the sex they had was beautiful.
After the dinner, while Irving leaves, Bert excuses Fields for his behavior because his memory gets fuzzy because he mentioned he worked at Lumen 20 years ago, which is before Severance existed. Irving said it's fine and he had fun and they should do this more often. We think Bert is hugely suspicious. He's been acting weird the whole dinner and we always were very wary of his innie as well. His retirement from Lumen is hugely suspicious, and it's really hard to buy that Lumen informed him about his affair with an innie. Lumen would do anything to cover up their mistakes, so we think he definitely knows a lot more than he's letting on.
We cut to Mark running to Regabi. It seems like Mark just changed his mind and wants Regabi to complete the reintegration process fully tonight. They finally prepare for this session and we see Regabi cutting Mark's heads open. She locates the chips inside his head, injects an unknown liquid around it, and closes his head. He immediately has a flood of memories, which include his innie having sex with Helly. Mark is so confused and he moves his head suddenly, but Regabi asks him to keep his head still. However, we hear a knock on his door. He opens it and it turns out to be his sister, Devon. Devon says she has a plan to try to communicate with his innie, mentioning the pregnant lady she met at baby camp. Mark, who's just been reintegrated, is going through a lot and asks Devon to stay out of it. He proceeds to faint as he has a flood of memories again in bits and pieces. Because of this, Regabi comes out of his room for help, surprising Devon.
Now we have reactions to this episode. Who do you think is the most sus in this episode?
I think the most sus is Fields. I think Fields has a lot of, anger towards Bert and Irving, but most of all, I think we don't know much about Fields is shown in this episode.
But do you have any speculations as to what he may be doing?
I think Fields works for Lumon, maybe as another severed employee. That's why he likes the severance sermon from the church.
But if that's the case, do you think that he would be so jealous of Bert's and Irving's innies having unprotected sex?
He wanted Bert to be a severed employee like him because of his idea of heaven, of going into heaven for both him and Bert.
Ah, okay, got it. Let's see if it's actually true in the coming episodes.
Hopefully. Okay, now, what do you think about Outie Bert?
So, Bert has been acting suspicious this whole time. I don't remember a time where he's not suspicious.
Wait, but that was Innie Bert.
Wait, let me explain. So, in season 1, right, he is about to be retired, and his outie kind of seems to be calm about it in the message to Dini. So I really don't think that he was being sacked because, or at least that's not something that Lumen told him because he really felt like calm and happy while he was giving the message to Zinni. Like if there was an example where he got sacked, he'll at least feel a little sad, right? So I really don't think that Lumen told him about his affair with Irving and stuff. And also, right before the retirement party, when he shook all the employees' hands, he gave us a suspicious look. And the camera panned, zoomed to him, and he gave us this look. So I've been suspicious about him from right from that time.
What kind of suspicion? I think I
Suspicions
know
as in
what your
like
suspicion is.
I just thought the camera moved a weird way at first because usually the camera doesn't focus on stuff they don't need you to focus on. So that's the main reason I was like, oh, something's wrong. So I just held my reservations there. But after watching this episode in season 2, where we actually get to see Bert again, like probably conversing with Irving, he's acting even more sus because first of all he seems to know what his Zinni is up to. Like he knows his Zinni had an affair with Irving, like coming back to the same point. And then like he jokes around with Irving saying that who the hell are you or something. And right when Irving banged his door, he started following him. So I really don't think that he would follow him if he doesn't know who he is, or at least have a clue about who he is. So, and then the main clue that we come to here is when Fields tells him that 20 years ago our nickname changed to Attila, and he was with a Lumen employee then. And then Irving asks, wasn't Severance like 12 years ago? So he may be working for Lumen right before the Severance procedure in itself. So it might be many things. He might be like a very senior level employee there, or he may have been severed right before everybody or something.
Do you still think Bert is reintegrated?
More than reintegrated, I think he was never severed in the first place and he's just acting. Because like it's very the timing is very sus because he's worked for Lumen for quite a long time and we clearly know it's right before Severance. And the innie bird gives us suspicious looks, the outie worked acts suspiciously. So he may be reintegrated, or my stronger feeling is that he was never severed and probably is like acting severed, like was doing this season. So those are my theories regarding Bot. But whatever it is, he is definitely sus, and he knows way more than he's letting on. I mean, I guess everybody is clear on that. So that's about Bert. Let's move on to like other characters.
Okay, let's skip Irving for now.
Hmm.
What do you think about Mr. Drummond's reappearance this episode?
It's a very intelligent way that they show that it's Mr. Drummond, because if you remember in the last episode, right, he had a frolic tattoo in his hands during the evaluation of Mr. Milchik. Thank God we caught that, because now we know it's actually Mr. Drummond. Because first I thought it was actually Dylan or Outie Dylan breaking into a door, but then after seeing the tattoo, I was like, it's definitely Mr. Drummond. And the weird part is that he knows he has keys to Irving's house, which is really weird. Like this tells us that has so much data on the outies. Probably they have keys to every employee's house, and he also has keys to the safe or the trunk, which is where his actual things are there, like classified files and stuff. So he has a trunk. He has a key to that trunk. He has the key to the door. There are probably chips listening in on what they're up to, because without that, he wouldn't know that there's a trunk there and which is locked. I feel like Lumen is spying on their outies as well. So what do you think about Mr. Drummond?
I still, I think he's very sus, and he's like the right hand man of Helena's father.
Ah, okay, yeah, makes sense. So let's move on to other characters.
How about the couples? Let's skip Helena, Heli, and Inni Mark, and let's go to Outie Helena and Outie Mark in the restaurant.
Okay, so this is one of the highlight moments of the episode. Basically, Helena is coming and talking to Mark, and he really finds it weird because, like, he knows who Helena is, and then he knows like she's like the heir to the Egan's, and she's Egan's daughter. That's all he knows about her, and she's not attempted to talk to him in any which way possible in season one. And she's coming suddenly and being pretty forward with her attempts, which is not like Helena. She doesn't really make the first move. That's usually Helly's thing. And she just kind of rambles about taking him to her father. So, like, again, all of it points to a single thing, that probably Mark is or might be becoming a father. And maybe Helena knows about it because she wants him to meet his father. So she may not know this also may be an attempt to like get closer to the outie mark because she's had an intimate relationship with Zinni. But I really think that she may have a hint about it. Even if she doesn't, I think the poster when goes away from the restaurant tells us clearly that he's about to become a father because Fu means father, right? And she
Yeah.
also mentions taking him to her father. So there are many father references in this episode. So this is like the big highlight of this episode. Should we move on to the other couple here? What do you think about Dylan and Gretchen?
I think this is a great scene for the actress playing Gretchen.
Mm-hmm.
She's trying to show that she's, well, essentially cheating on outie Dylan with Innie Dylan, and she's being conflicted because to her, they're the same person but just different personalities. So I think her be falling in love with Innie Dylan is showing how great her reaction is.
So what do you think about it? Like, does this mean she's cheating on him or not?
I think, well, essentially every Innie is different from their outie, so I think she is cheating on Dylan, on outie Dylan.
I mean, I have a
So,
different opinion on this because,
oh,
like,
okay.
I mean, as much as you might say the Inni and Outie are two different souls, right? They have the same voice, they have the same body, and they have similar thoughts as well. Like, only they slightly vary. It's like seeing a celebrity uh, up close and in person. They're kind of similar, but they're little different. So, I'm like, is this actually cheating? But one thing's for sure, Gretchen wants her outie to be like her innie. So like
Yeah.
she's really confused. What if you show a person an ideal version of the person you want? So I don't know. I feel like it's not her fault here because clearly Dylan is struggling on the outside and she has to kind of manage the whole house by herself. And here we have the innie Dylan saying that no, I'll work here because you need me to work here. So she's kind of touched by it, and he wants to spend time with her and stuff, which probably hasn't happened for a while in Outie Dylan's life. So
Yeah.
I don't know. I am pretty conflicted to say that she's cheating on him. Uh,
Yeah. Well, a celebrity is different from, has a different personality, but they have the same memories. An Innie and outie has essentially different memories from each other. So
okay. I
they're
have a
different
question now. I have a question.
person.
If
Okay.
Dylan is reintegrated, does it count as cheating? Is what I'm saying.
Okay, if they're reintegrated, then it's not cheating.
But
Cause
then it's like two souls merging together, right? So they become a different soul. So it's
yeah,
not the same thing, I would say.
I guess so.
So
It's hard.
yeah, it's hard. Okay, let's move on to the other characters. I mean, comment down below if you what do you guys think? Is it cheating or is it not? So yeah, let's move on to the other characters. What do you think about
Okay.
the Mr. Milchick and Miss Huang this episode?
I think we're finally finding out Mr. Milchick's true personality.
Mm-hmm. So, like,
Different
do you
from
think that
when,
he's not as thrilled working with Lumen as Miss Cobell was?
yeah, we're finding out that he's not as strict as Miss Cobell and as happy with Lumen as Miss Cobell.
Yeah, I mean, I think they are kind of going to foreshadow Mr. Milchick siding with the Innies because he's getting,
Yeah,
like, the more he works, the worse reviews he gets. And I feel like deep
yeah, I
down he
think
feels for the
that's,
Innies and wants to do good things, but he does not because of his work. And he's
yeah,
slowly
I think
questioning
that's,
Lumen's values, I guess.
yeah, that's a great conclusion. I
Yeah.
really think so too, that he's gonna side with the Innies and start the revolution against Lumon or something.
Oh, that would be really great if that actually happens. I don't know if we'll see that in this season, maybe the next seasons or something.
Question if Mr. Milchick is also the supervisor for the other departments.
He's the manager of the severed floor, right? So yeah, he is the supervisor for the other departments, in my opinion,
Yeah.
because the severed
We
floor has all
barely,
severed employees.
yeah, we barely see Miss Wang and Mr. Milchick interacting with any other department that it's hard to imagine them being supervisors of the entire severed floor.
I mean, they mention it time and time again. Also, we know
Yeah,
that
it's
the
true.
goat department knows Gemma. So if they know Gemma, sorry, the goat department knows Miss Casey. So if they know Miss Casey, they should know Mr. Milchick, right?
Mm, yeah.
So
Okay.
okay, let's move on. What about Miss Huang?
Oh,
Like, what do you think she's actually doing here? Is she on an internship, or is she like what is she doing here?
this confirms that she's at least in college working to be an intern
Yep.
in Lumen or in a different department at Lumen.
So what do you think about Mr. Milchick threatening her?
It, it's normal when you get complaints about your work ethic. You threaten the people who sent those complaints. It's a normal reaction.
I guess a lot of people like us have had a similar experience whenever we complain to our higher ups. This is what
Yeah.
happens. So I guess it's a immensely relatable scene. So what do you think about that term that he used? Winter tide material. What do you think about this term? What do you
Oh,
think it means?
winter tide?
Yeah. He tells her like
I
he is responsible for deeming her winter tide material for her to graduate the fellowship.
I think it's just a title for interns.
I mean, it's
I
a
still
title,
haven't.
but why use
Yeah.
that term in particular?
I don't know if it's connected to Cold Harbor.
I mean, I'm on that boat, or either it's that, or maybe she's doing a winter internship, like summer internships.
Maybe
So I guess
winter
that would be a
tide.
plausible explanation. Okay, let's conclude these two characters. Do we have any
Okay.
other characters left? Yes.
Oh,
What about Outie Irving?
Ragabi. Well, he wasn't that prominent this episode.
But he asked the
He
right
was
questions
just
though.
there.
He like got into the point, I would say.
Yeah. He got into Bert and Field's skin with his questions.
Yeah, like do you think Irving believes Bert when he says that
I
Field's memories is not accurate when he drinks or something?
I I don't think so.
Yeah, me too, because
I
he's really invested in researching these severed employees, and he probably has pre-information about Bert, as we've seen in the file. He knows when he got severed and stuff, so I think he's going to investigate Bert a little more. I feel like he's going to be responsible for getting Bert's
Mhm.
truth out, because like Bert is
Okay.
like really weird.
No, I just thought of the list of severed employees. There
Ah,
was two Dylans. Just something fun.
oh, nice.
Okay, but there wasn't any fields. Did you notice any fields?
Nope, I did not. But I haven't. I have
Oh,
to recheck again. But as far as I remember, no.
I thought Bert and Fields were listed. Okay. This is the end of today's breakdown. What do you think will happen next episode? Will we get more answers or will it just leave us with more questions? Comment down below. If you like our analysis and want more, please like and subscribe. We upload weekly. This is the Movie Magnet Podcast. See you next episode.